4 states will hold primary elections on Tuesday ahead of the November midterms. As part of our Local Matters series, we're taking a closer look at the key races in Georgia. 5 Republicans and 2 Democrats are running to replace Governor Nathan Deal. Georgia has not had a Democratic governor since 2002. Bill Nigut is the host and producer of Political Rewind and Two-Way Street on Georgia Public Broadcasting. He joins me now from Atlanta. Welcome to you, Bill.
Hi, Elaine.
So let's talk about the Republican side first. How significantly has President Trump and his policies factored into this race?
Well, you mentioned there are 5 candidates in the Republican field. Certainly 3 of them have embraced him in very dramatic fashions. In fact, they've been competing to talk about who was the earliest and most fervent supporter of President Trump. All 5 of them are certainly, to one extent or another, looking for Trump. They're embracing him. But it's interesting that Casey Cagle, who's the front runner in this race, the current lieutenant governor, although he has certainly said he supports Trump, he hasn't gone quite as far as the others in talking about Donald Trump in this campaign.
Interesting. Well, recent polls show that Lieutenant Governor Cagle is the favorite. Is there a sense who is most likely to challenge him in a runoff if he does not receive 50% of the vote?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now, the polls suggest that Cagle is well over 40%, but he doesn't appear to be reaching 50% plus 1, which, of course, is what he'd need to go in without a runoff. It appears right now that the race for second is between a state senator, Hunter Hill, and the current Secretary of State, Brian Kemp. Now, you may know something about Brian Kemp because he got a lot of national attention when he ran a TV commercial in which he's sitting next to a young man who is allegedly a teenager who wants to date his daughter. Brian Kemp is holding a shotgun.
Yes.
He points the gun towards the boy and appears to be threatening that he better take care of his daughter if he's going to go out with her. That commercial, and then a second commercial in which he talked about going out in his own pickup truck to pick up undocumented residents of Georgia, seems to have given him momentum and energy, and I think it's giving him a pretty good shot at second place over Hunter Hill.
Interesting. All right, let's talk about the Democrats. There are only 2 Democrats running for governor, but they're using different strategies to gather the necessary votes. How are Stacy Evans and Stacy Abrams approaching this race in a red state?
Yeah, this is a race that's getting an awful lot of national attention because it really, in many ways, establishes some questions and perhaps some answers about where the National Democratic Party is going to head in the 2018 cycle. So, Stacy Evans is a former state legislator. She is a white candidate, and she's looking to revive what we here in Georgia call the yellow Democrat a voter base. That means white rural voters, white largely suburban voters, people who would vote for a yellow dog as long as he was a Democrat. That coalition has been dormant for many years in Georgia, not since the late 90s, but Stacy Evans believes she can bring them back to her side because she believes they are not happy with President Trump. On the other hand, Stacey Abrams is taking a completely new approach in Georgia. She's running as a outright liberal candidate. She's hoping to build her voter base around African-American voters, in many cases voters who have not been to the polls for some time. So they are running very different races, and the future of the Democratic Party may be predicted to some extent by this race.
Yeah, you can see why there is a lot of national attention on that. Well, Bill, another race that's getting attention is the House primary for Georgia's 6th district, which CBS News projects as a competitive race. Congresswoman Karen Handel won that district in a high-profile special election last year. Which Democrat should we be watching there?
It's really hard to tell. You have 4 Democrats in that contest. there are three who seem to be competitive. The one who's garnered the most national attention is a woman named Lucy Macbeth. Lucy Macbeth tragically lost her son in a gun incident some years ago, and she became a national spokesman for gun safety measures and got a lot of attention because of that. She's been endorsed by Everytown USA. They've given her quite a bit of money. So have other national groups that want to put gun control measures in place. But then you have two men, Kevin Abel, who's run his campaign largely against Donald Trump. The commercials he's put on the air are all basically attacks on Trump and a promise on his part to be an opponent of Trump if he gets to Congress. And then there's another candidate in the race named Bobby Cagle, a former local CBS News reporter. He's largely running on how important it is that Obamacare stay in place. Who's going to emerge from that? It's almost certain to go to a runoff. I'll let you guess who's going to end up in that runoff.
Well, let me ask you about Karen Handel. She's become more closely aligned with President Trump since joining Congress. Yeah. Is she now distancing herself from the president?
Not really. I think it's safe to say that Karen Handel is being a little cautious. Remember, she didn't win the special election by a particularly large margin. She won it with a pretty decent margin, but she's aware of the fact that the 6th district does have voters who are not enthusiastic about Trump, and so she'd love to win them over. So on one hand, she appeared not long ago at a rally with President Trump. On the other hand, she said more recently that she is a firm believer that Robert Mueller should continue his investigation of collusion and obstruction. So she's trying to be a little careful in how she positions herself. She's not running as a Trump hugger, however.
All right. Well, across the state, the number of women running for office has seen a significant increase. Are Republicans worried that these new candidates might help turn out greater numbers of Democratic voters?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that Republicans are keeping an eye on all of the women who are running in legislative races, in the congressional races, and they do understand. Here's what I think they really get. I think many Republicans in this state would tell you they feel relatively confident about winning many of the elections in this particular 2018 midterm cycle. But I think they're all nervous that they see the voter base in Georgia, the demographics of Georgia changing, women becoming empowered, more Hispanics in Georgia, more Asians. If Stacey Abrams energizes African Americans on her behalf, I think Republicans realize that 2020 could really be tricky if they don't lose a number of races in 2018.
All right, we'll all be watching. Bill Nigut, thanks so much.
Thank you, Elaine.